Hey everybody, this is GGB. Today we're going to talk about the Thursday night football game. As you can see, I'm going to get this out maybe last minute at the very best. If you're feeling under the weather all day, I literally just slept for 4 hours straight, trying to feel better. And I do feel a little bit better, but let's get into this thing. At 7:20, we got the Ravens traveling to Miami to play the Dolphins. The spread started at 7.5, but has since risen to 8.5 over the past couple of hours on Fox. Running back, start off with the injuries we got for both these teams. Running back Latavius Murray has an ankle injury, did not practice, and he's officially out for this game, which means Devonta Freeman, the 2014 fourth-round pick out of FSU, mainly known for his time with the Falcons, is going to be the starting running back. Le'Veon Bell, obviously a big-time name, 2013 second-round pick out of Michigan State, and former Steeler, it's going to be the number 2 back, and then the number 3 back is going to be now Tyson Williams, the second-year player out of BYU. Started the year as the starting running back, but has since been overtaken by those 3 veterans. Tight end Nick Boyle was listed as he was listed as he had a knee injury, limited practice, questionable. When I looked at it now, updated wise, he is officially listed as out for this game. So that means it's going to be Josh Oliver stepping into that number 2 spot, the 2019 third-round pick out of San Jose State by the Jaguars. It's actually been pretty good this year, so it's actually kind of interesting to see how he's going to step into that number 2 role. And then Sammy Watkins had an injury heading in, but fortunately it seems like that injury went away. He had a thigh injury. He had a full practice. He was questionable. It was questionable. But it actually seems like he's going to be back for this game, according to ESPN's latest update. The injury has then switched over to James Prochet. James Prochet, the second, being their actually number 6 receiver, so not a huge deal, but a guy that we're starting to get more involved. He's their special teams guy. He's a returner, so that's definitely hurts there, losing him, especially since no one really expected it, because he wasn't on the injury report heading into this week. And then an offensive tackle, you've already lost some significant members. You're starting right tackle Patrick McCarry. He has an ankle injury. He did not practice, so he was doubtful. Now he's officially out for this game. But not to mention that, you already lost Ronnie Stanley for probably the year. Brandon Knight out with an injury. Those are all your offensive tackles. Not to mention Ben Cleveland at left guard that you lose. But you have 2 different players that could possibly replace him. On CBS Sports, his backup on the depth chart listed as Cedric Ogbuehi, 2015 first-round picks at Texas A&M. But on ESPN, his backup is listed as Tyre Phillips, 2020 third-round pick at Mississippi State. So it just depends on how that shakes out. I think it's probably, I'm going to go with ESPN more. ESPN keeps their stuff more updated than CBS Sports. So I expect to see Tyre Phillips in that game at right tackle, so it's going to be interesting for Miami to especially taking that spot. At defensive end, you obviously already have a pretty serious injury in Derek Wolfe, who's gone on IR. Now, he has a back injury. He's supposed to be back week 10, so that's this week. We'll see if that shakes out. I doubt it, though, because he's still listed as IR on ESPN's website. So now it's going to be stepping into that role is going to be Broderick Washington. Actually, they signed Justin Madubuike. Justin Madubuike from the practice squad to be that left end to go opposite of Calais Campbell. Broderick Washington staying in his role. He's a 2020 third-round pick out of Texas A&M. And then backing him up is going to be Kylie McKenzie. He's a 2018 6th-round pick out of Tennessee, mostly known for his time with a Bengal, but it's going to be interesting. Both these guys are last-minute updates, so obviously don't expect them to be providing too much of contribution here. I have some pretty serious injuries at nose tackle. You had 4 nose tackles on your team. 3 of them are out with injury. Brandon Williams had a shoulder injury, did not practice. It was listed as questionable a couple hours ago, but now that has switched to out. So that's unfortunate for you. Xavier Kelly has an Achilles. He's out for the year. And Otaro Alaka also has an IR distinction. So I don't know if that's out for the year or not. Which means you have only one technical nose tackle on your team in Justin Ellis. Justin Ellis being the 2014 fourth-round pick out of Louisiana Tech. I'll see how that works out for them. And then linebacker, you have 3 pretty significant injuries. Although you can probably guess that there are more, actually, since I've updated this list. Right off the bat, when I found out, you had Dalen Hayes. He had an ankle IR. He was supposed to return this week, but again, he's still distinguished as IR on ESPN's depth chart, which makes me think that he's not going to be able to play this week. Malik Harrison has a calf injury. He had a non-football related injury. He's out for week 10, and then LJ Ford has an ACL injury, and that means he's out for the year. But Otaro Alaka apparently also not only plays nose tackle, but also it comes in as interesting as an inside linebacker. So he used a versatile player there. Obviously, I said he's on IR already. And Jalen Ferguson, kind of an out-of-nowhere injury. Wasn't really listed on his injury report. Obviously not a huge deal. He was a little bit buried on the depth chart. But hopefully you have some pretty significant injuries, so it's going to hurt for this game. But at weak side linebacker, you got Tyus Bowser starting. Tyus Bowser is the 2017 second-round pick out of Houston, and Pernell McPhee is going to back him up, 2011 fifth-round pick out of Mississippi State. At left inside linebacker, you got Josh Bynes, the 11th-year player out of Auburn, and the backing up is going to be Christian Welch, third-year player out of Iowa. And then obviously they have some pretty good starting linebackers. Obviously, Tyus Bowser already, but this is right inside linebacker. You got Patrick Queen, the 2020 first-round pick out of LSU. Backing him up is going to be Chris Board, who's provided some pretty good minutes, fifth-year player out of North Dakota State. And then obviously you have Justin Houston, 2011 third-round pick out of Georgia, coming in at strong side linebacker. He's going to be playing that role. He's been doing a good job of that this year. And Odafe Owa, the rookie out of Penn State, 2021 first-round pick. So we'll be seeing how he does this year, and he's definitely going to have to be more involved with all the linebacker injuries going on. And obviously Jalen Ferguson is hurt. He was supposed to be more depth role anyways, though. And then at cornerback, you have 4 corners hurt, which is definitely not great ideally, but, it's not as bad. And actually, it's interesting, but Marcus Peters, he had an ACL injury to start the year. He's on IR, likely out for the year. Iman Marshall, knee injury, he's on IR. No distinction for him to return. I don't expect him to. Khalil Dorsey has an undisclosed injury on IR. I don't expect him to return either. But Chris Westry had a meniscus injury, and he's supposed to return this week. And actually, he does seem to be returning this week, so it's going to be interesting. More depth there. But right off the bat, you had only 4 corners on your roster. Now, obviously, that has changed because Chris Westry is back. But before you had that, you had Anthony Averett as your number 1 corner, 2018 fourth-round pick out of Alabama. And then you had Marlon Humphrey on the other side, 2017 first-round pick out of Alabama. And then as the backup roles, Jimmy Smith, obviously a pretty good player, 2011 first-round pick out of Colorado, but a pretty old one at that. And then Tavon Young is the only one no one's ever heard of. Like everyone else has heard of Jimmy Smith, Anthony Everett, and Marlon Humphrey, but Tavon Young's a little bit of an unknown, 2016 fourth-round pick out of Temple. And then obviously you have Chris Westry, he was looking pretty good in preseason before he got hurt. So it'd be interesting to see what kind of depth he offers. And then before the injury season really started, Deshaun Elliott had a pectoral injuries on IR, likely out for the year. So Brandon Stevens, the 2021 third-round pick out of SMU, has actually stepped in as a starting free safety. And unfortunately for the Ravens, their backup free safety was Ardarius Washington. He's an undrafted rookie out of TCU. He's also out for this game with an injury, which means if Brandon Stevens goes down, it's either going to be strong safety. Going to be bringing in a strong safety, either Geno Stone being a 2020 7th-round pick out of Iowa. He's also looked pretty good in the preseason. And then Anthony Levine Sr., obviously the experienced veteran 11th-year player out of Tennessee State. So it's all just depending on what you do. But obviously, if you're the Ravens, you can't really deal with any more injuries. And then the Dolphins, on the other hand, haven't had the worst injury luck, but obviously not good on the defensive side of things. On the offensive side of things, also suffering some pretty serious injuries. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa was distinguished as a finger, limited practice, questionable for this week. But unfortunately, recent news, he's going to be out. Jacoby Brissett's going to be starting. And if Jacoby Brissett gets hurt, then Tua can start. But mostly just you're going to rely on Jacoby Brissett. Running back, you had Malcolm Brown, your free agent pickup, had a quad injury. He's on IR until next week. So Patrick Laird, the fourth-year player out of Cal, who I don't really like all that much. He's not really that great of a running back, is going to be coming in for this week. As the number 3 back. Wide receiver Devontae Parker has a shoulder injury, is on IR until at least week 12. Will Fuller has a finger injury, on IR until at least week 11. Lynn Bowden has a hamstring, out for the year. Alan Hearn's wrist, out for the year. Those are your really top. You were looking at them as of 4 of your top 6 receivers heading into the year. So obviously they've been relying. The wide receiver position has kind of been decimated, but you still have Jalen Waddle, the 2021 first-round pick out of Alabama. He's obviously very explosive. Matt Collins has stepped up into his role very well, the 2017 fourth-round pick out of UNC. Albert Wilson, also a very solid veteran, 8th-year player out of Georgia State. And obviously, if you were going to get hurt at a position, wide receiver is probably the best if you're the Dolphins because you were pretty good at depth there. Number 4, wide receiver is Isaiah Ford, the 2017 7th-round pick out of Virginia Tech, who's just been able to kind of move up and off the roster throughout the year, depending on whether they need him or not. And then Preston Williams, which I actually expected higher up on the depth chart, 4th-year player out of Colorado State, but fortunately for him, he was not that high, honestly. They've had some injuries on the offensive line. Left tackle, they have Greg Little and Larnell Coleman both out, but I honestly kind of expected Liam Eichenberg, the rookie out of Notre Dame, to start anyways at that position. Now, the big injury position they've had at offensive line is center. Michael Dieter and Greg Max both started at some points in the year, and both of them are out. Greg Max is supposed to return at earliest week 13, which means they've had to go into free agency. They picked up Austin Ryder, the 2015 7th-round pick out of USF. He was the Chiefs center for many, many years. And then Cameron Tom, elevated from the practice squad. He was a 5th-year player out of Southern Mississippi. He's been a backup center. He's been a swing position in recent years, so he's actually a pretty solid center. I wouldn't honestly want him starting for my team, but as a Saints fan, Cameron Tom was very good as a swing player at different positions. And then the only other injury you really have, you have some injuries on defense, not big ones. Darius Hodge, he's a backup weak side linebacker. He is from Marshall. He's a rook. He's an undrafted player. He's out for this game, so not a big deal. Andrew Van Ginkel starts at that position anyway. It's just less depth. You're going to either be starting Sam Aguavon, a weak side linebacker, so probably starting Jalen Phillips if if Darius Hodge can't go, obviously can't. Free safety is probably the one where they've had the most injury. Obviously, had Jason McCourty go down with a foot injury. He's on IR at least till next week, so you're going to have to survive him without him for one more week. Sheldrick Redwine, the 2019 4th-round pick out of Miami by the Cleveland Browns. He is out for this game as well, which means only one free safety on the roster, Jevon Holland, the 2021 2nd-round pick out of Oregon. He's actually been playing pretty well lately. And honestly, their safety depth isn't the worst. You still have Eric Rowe starting on the other side and Brandon Jones, who is a very good playmaker in his own right. So it's going to be interesting there. And then the only other injury is cornerback Elijah Campbell. He has a toe injury at limited practice, questionable for this game, but officially he's out for this game, which means, oh no, you lose your your number 6 corner. Stepping out into your number 6 corner role, though, is going to be Trill Williams. Trill Williams being an undrafted player out of Syracuse, but he was pretty good at Syracuse and kind of wanted my Saints to keep him when he was an undrafted free agent. He's probably not going to see the field that with all the corner. They would have to have a serious bad day at corner where a whole bunch of them got hurt for him to actually see the field. But who do I think is going to win the game? I think it's obviously the Ravens. I understand the Ravens have way more injuries, and honestly, a lot of them are pretty significant. Their injuries to the running back room at the beginning of the year I thought was going to end their season, but they've really fought through that adversity. And again, it's just the Baltimore Ravens. They could take anyone off the streets and put him at running back, and he would have a success. But not to mention, you got 3 big names a couple of years ago. I believe there was a quote a couple weeks ago by Latavius Murray, where if you had all 3 of us on the roster like 3 or 4 years ago, you were going to have a serious cap issue. And it's true. Latavius Murray, Devonta Freeman, Le'Veon Bell were all huge names not that long ago. Like, these were guys we were considering some of the best running backs in the NFL just a little while ago. So it's actually, it's quite interesting. But that we considered it, but they just went in free agency and decided to restock. Devonta Freeman has done pretty well in replacement of Latavius Murray. But obviously, if you're a Ravens fan, you want Murray back. He's definitely been your best running back so far this year. And honestly, I don't know why my Saints cut him. Devonta Freeman has had bad years. Like, the past couple of years, he has not been very good. He has lacked explosiveness. And Le'Veon Bell has shown, like, he's a prima donna kind of player. He was upset with the Jets when he didn't play when he wasn't playing, I guess. And he was upset with the Chiefs when he wasn't playing. So, I could understand your concerns there. But Latavius Murray, obviously, he's been a consistent player for the Saints for a couple of years. It's just they couldn't agree on a contract, and they thought Tony Jones Jr. was the future number 2 back. But Devonta Freeman's I think he's gonna come in and play really well. The Dolphins' defense just has not been good, despite all you've had so much luck on the defensive side of injuries. Like, you've only lost about one starter, which not many other teams can say. Most teams have lost more than one starter on defense. You have been extremely lucky, and that's not even a guy that's out for the year. You're going to get Jason McCourty back eventually. It's so insane that they've had such great injury luck, and they have not been good. This is like a big win. This is one the Dolphins need if they want to stay in it. They're 2-7 right now, and they need a win to stay at 3-7, stay in that playoff race, although it's going to be really hard. They're going to need some serious help. This is like a must-win game, but I don't see they have the explosive firepower to do so. If they're going to do it, Mike Gesicki has to be on his A game. Jacoby Brissett has to be pretty good. And Jalen Waddle and Myles Gaskin both have to be huge contributing factors in this game. The offensive line has to hold up long enough for Jacoby Brissett to throw it. I don't know if that's going to happen, especially with the pass rush the Ravens have been able to produce despite their injuries. But I'm going to go with the Ravens here. But here with this GGB, Cosmo saying, adios amigos.